Hey guys, off the top rope here, off the Mike Sports Network. So I talked about it after Smackdown, the disaster of the segment that it was between Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair, where Charlotte Flair threw some barbs, basically gave up in her promo. Tiffany went to defend herself. Doesn't exactly look great for your young 25-year-old champion to do that. But what was she supposed to do? What was she supposed to do? Just sit there and take it and look weak on camera after the leader of the division is acting like a petulant baby right in front of our eyes. Like, listen, I'm not one to endorse unprofessional behavior because let's get real. Both of them did not look good. This was not a good look for the women's division. But if you're Tiffany Stratton and you're put out there in that situation after you were pretty much embarrassed and clowned 2 weeks prior in a side-by-side segment, like, I understand why some people will migrate and say, well, Tiffany Stratton doesn't look good in this situation. I understand that. But here's what it comes down to for me and why I have been heavy in my belief that Charlotte Flair looks the worst in this situation. This is a multiple time champion who has been the standard of women's wrestling for the last decade. She's been the standard of this, but she has had multiple counts where she has come across as unprofessional and has not done business and has not played ball. And yet, because of her last name, she has been able to get by. And I really hope that a message is sent here and she does not win the championship at WrestleMania. Tiffany Stratton deserves so much better. And, hey, maybe she could have stood by and, not said anything and not gone for the divorces and not gone for all that stuff. But on some level, if you're a leader like Charlotte Flair is supposed to be for this division, you've got to conduct yourself better like that. And if you're 10 years in the business and you don't know how to conduct a promo in front of a hostile crowd like that, and you just give up, like, I understand that a lot of people don't like Logan Paul. Logan Paul has been booed mercifully for weeks and months whenever he gets there. He powers through it, and it's impressive. Dominic Mysterio gets nuclear amounts of heat. He handles it really well. Charlotte Flair can't do that. She just gives up and just, it just comes across as childish. We don't know the full story of what transpired, but to act like Tiffany Stratton is really the villain in all of this and this power hungry witch who is going after things. She's new to the business. Yeah, she's a pretty blonde who's overachieved and maybe has been thrust into a spot that maybe she's not ready for, but that's not her fault. And if you're Charlotte Flair and you claim to be about elevating the business and doing things better, maybe put a little bit more effort into this. I understand you missed WrestleMania because of one of the most significant injuries of your career, but let's call a spade a spade. Let's call it what it is. You shouldn't have won the Royal Rumble. This feud has not registered very well because you're supposed to bring up and elevate talent. And part of this is, Tiffany was put in an impossible position, but Tiffany deserves so much better than what she has gotten in this feud. And I'm not going to have it with people who are just going to be like, oh yeah, Charlotte, 14-time champion, they shouldn't have put her in with this rookie. That doesn't excuse Charlotte to behave the way that she did in that ring on Friday night. Like, you gave up. You gave up. You just stopped talking. The fuck was that? And it's not the first time. Her former best friend Becky Lynch is sitting there in the ring, and they had a falling out. They're having a stupid transitional championship where they hand off the championships. Charlotte doesn't want to play ball. Becky tries to go get it's the common denominator in this whole thing is that Charlotte Flair, despite her name and her prestige and all of the championships that she has won, is still a petulant child. And I think she has done, I say the same thing about Mercedes Moné. I say there's Sasha Banks. Like, you can do a lot for the women's division and then, not be good in your role. I think Mercedes has done next to nothing to elevate the AEW women's division. Charlotte Flair, outside of a couple of situations, has not done a hell of a lot to elevate the women's division in WWE. countless amounts of examples where she, like, why was she in that match with Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 35? That was probably a Vince McMahon decision. But there's so many amounts of countless examples that I could tell you of, like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, what good does that do for anybody when you have a future star that you're trying to elevate, who's the women's champion, who is over with the audience, and you're in a high profile, suppose you won the Royal Rumble, you picked her, and yet you've walked over her, you've made her look like, pretty much just like a jobber to the point of, but it's just like, I'm not going to have it with these people who are just going to like discredit Tiffany like she's this rookie. That's the point of this feud, is you're supposed to elevate her and take her to that next level. That's why you put Charlotte Flair in this match. And the way that she has conducted herself throughout this feud has not been great. And the reason why this feud has not registered is because all of that equity and all that, real estate that you've put into Charlotte Flair, it's not working. And a lot of that has to do with how much effort and how much, time and, how much care she really has. I don't think she cares. She looked like her body language, and just like, maybe it was because the crowd was reacting to her a certain way, but it's like her body language looked like she didn't want to be there. And that tells me all that I need to know. Tiffany Stratton absolutely deserved better and has deserved better than what she has gotten. And whether the decision was to be Charlotte was going to win this match, Charlotte can't win at WrestleMania. She can't. There's no way that you're sending a good message to your audience. And I know Triple H is more in tune with it than Vince McMahon is. To me, Tiffany Stratton's got to win at WrestleMania and you got to move on. And frankly, I don't know if we should see or hear from Charlotte Flair ever again, because this has become a toxic situation where outside of even the Rhea Ripley thing where she put her over and that was a great match, it took forever to get there and the feud wasn't registering. Rhea's star power, like the women's division does not need Charlotte Flair anymore. There's talented women there. We thought that they could use Charlotte Flair to elevate another talent. Look what that's gotten them. She's come across as a baby. They've got to me, if I'm calling what it is, I think WWE doesn't need Charlotte Flair anymore. Long story short, I've taken a long time to get to my point, but Tiffany Stratton deserves better. And I think WWE would benefit from just moving off of Charlotte Flair and just, getting out of the Charlotte Flair business, because this has not done any good for anybody else. It's been fun for a while. She's a talented athlete. She's one of the greats to ever do it in the women's division. But with the talent level and all the people that they've had in this division going forward, I think it's time to, get out of the Charlotte Flair business. Just an embarrassing showing on Friday night. Tiffany's not absolved from any blame, but what was she supposed to do? Sit there and take it? What are we doing? Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.